John Robb here, interviewing the legendary Segs and Ruts still in other projects and bands. So, well, we'll start off with what you're actually up to at the moment.
Well, at the moment, we haven't stopped sort of touring with Ruts DC really. Recently, the last release was the Electroacoustic 3, and I never thought we'd do an acoustic version of anything, but there we go. And in a way, it's the best one so far, I think. And we've even got a new song on it, Bound in Blood, which has gone down really well. So we did the acoustic tour, which we were supposed to do. It was all 45, like 45 years since the first release. Two 45-minute sets, 45 single, Um, but obviously with the stories and everything, it turned into 2 hour sets. Roughly got to sing one. I think it went down really, really well. Didn't quite know what to expect really, but it was good because we've done the Dead Men Walking stuff. I think we got better at sitting down and doing that. And then recently we just done Rebellion with the full electric, and we did like 3 gigs and 2 gigs in Ireland and one in Stowmarket with the full band. So that good to get back to the the grit of the, because it all works together, doesn't it? Really. So we've been doing that, and now we've got a little. Well, some will call it a hiatus. I call it a couple of weeks without doing anything. So chilling out a little bit, just taking stock, doing the accounts, all that boring stuff, and then we've got a gig in we've got a festival in Köln in Germany, and then we've got support with the Undertones, support with From the Jam, and we're going to do loads of gigs with From the Jam. I just heard that Bruce Foxton's been rushed into hospital today, apparently.
Oh,
I just heard that.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether the tour's going to go ahead. I think they've set it up so it will. So I'm not sure. We're going to do it if we can, and it just be a sort of solid set of gigs, until the next phase.
It's interesting what you managed to do here, because you managed to sort of play with your history and celebrate your history, but also keep the band moving forward. And is it quite difficult to get that balance?
Um, I think rather than be difficult, I think it would have been more difficult to just do, we never actually reformed the Ruts. We've reformed Ruts DC. I always felt funny about that, and you were very integral, because I remember after that 2007 thing, we started doing some gigs. I remember meeting you at some catering table. I think I was with Alabama 3, and I said, I feel really weird, John, about going out and doing these songs. And you said, no, the songs need to be heard. So I never forgot that. But I'm very, very pleased that we carried on writing, because we did the reggae stuff, which everybody knows we can do. But when we did Music Must Destroy, that was really difficult for me, because it was like, okay, got to write lyrics that fit in with the remit of the Ruts and Ruts DC. And it kind of worked. So now we're 2 albums in on that front, really. So and some of them, like Psychic Attack, Music Must Destroy, they fit in really well. And I'm so proud that we can do that, So when we're doing a set now, it's not we can somehow, I don't know how we managed to fit it all in. We can sort of go bang and put the new stuff, the old stuff, and some slowed down ones, Born Innocent and stuff like that, and it seems to work. So I think actually, rather than be more difficult doing that, I think it's essential, because without mentioning any names, I mean, there's a hell of a lot of bands going out doing the greatest hits or the hits, isn't there? Some you just want to go and see those hits, and I'm very pleased with ourselves that we've been able to do that, and I think we'll carry on doing that until such time as we fall over. I suppose. Yeah,
When you talk about writing the lyrics within the parameters of what the idea of the band is, I mean, the music doesn't seem to do that. It seems to move on into a different space, obviously because the lineup's slightly different.
yeah.
Is there an idea of what you are? Is there an idea in your head of what Ruts DC actually musically is?
I think anything goes with Ruts DC, and we like to be bold. I think there's a common thread that runs through it. I always feel it when I'm writing the lyrics, but it kind of has to be, for want of a better word, socially conscious. Is I mean, it doesn't mean all the songs have to be about that, but I mean, our legacies like Babylon's Burning, jar war. They're very, very serious things, and that's how I cut my teeth. Really, being in a band that had that much to say, and you look back at that and think, well, when I say to my daughter, like she said, I like Babylon's Burning, and you go, well, but you think about being on top of the pops and selling that many records. I mean, when has there been a time when that social comment can be out there? It certainly wouldn't happen now, because I mean, even if there was a top of the pops, you can't really. There's no one really doing that. Sadly, there's a few, there's a few good bands, but I think so that thread remains all the way through, even in the rut. Although is it socially conscious? It kind of is, because it's a thing at the time, which was a revolution of maybe getting out of it or whatever. But it was about doing something about it. I think I think this is where our conversation came in the other day at literary stage, wasn't it? It's I feel it's a responsibility to actually provide some answers more than just pointing the finger. And I think the overall message is helping people to carry on thinking for themselves, as Misty and Roots would say. That kind of revolution is a word I won't really use anymore. I use worn out revolution, because it is a bit worn out. I mean, but it's resistance more, isn't it? I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, that's because when the conversation we're having at Rebellion, it was talk about what the role of a band is, and is it? I kind of think, in a sense, it's not. No one's expected to provide answers. That's just crazy. Nobody can provide an answer. Not even.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Well,
yeah.
is it about empowerment and maybe asking questions and providing a space where people feel good about themselves, in a sense that they can go on and do things?
Definitely. I mean, and that's what I mean. That was the aspect of punk. Certainly, me and Ruffy embraced, was just like, and Foxy and Malcolm was like, we can do this, Christ. And that was a very exclusive rock arena before then, wasn't it? You know what I mean? These people were untouchable, really. I think it's almost like a safe space as well. Obviously, along the way, and since this Ruts DC last incarnation, which is now getting on, 50, I don't know, 15 years. Um, some people have come and gone. Some people have said, "Oh, they're not the same without Malcolm," and I go, "No, indeed, we're not. That's why we haven't reformed the Ruts." And and also, to be frank, I miss him every day, but it's been over 45 years, and so we got the right to write new stuff. And I think the way we've carried that mantle forward is good, without being too pretentious about it. If I could do a stop frame of the crowds, that come to see us, I think the crowds that come to see us now, a lot of the chaff has gone, and people that were, and bless them, if they don't want to come, absolutely. But we've got a good hardcore fan base now that like the old stuff, like the new stuff, and it's a sort of safe space, really. I think as well. People come along. It ain't going to be any fights at our gigs, hopefully, you know. And where before, back in the day, it was like pitch battles, because even then, so like, but the Ruts were this and the Ruts were that. Well, the Ruts weren't that. There was pitch battles between different tribes, and Ruffy's always going about the tribes, because there was so many different tribes, skinheads, stuff, quite heavy, scary situations. But when you look at the pictures of the skinheads, they're really young, John. They're like, they're
Yeah.
like, you just sort of go, come on. And some of those guys, I think this has been good as well. I've met some of those guys along the way. People, people that were, there's one particular guy from Dundee, and he stole a car. He came down to London, like, pretty right wing, came down to London, came to one of our gigs with Misty and Roots to see what the Rock Against Racism thing was all about. It changed his life, he said, and he actually went, "Oh, this is great." So I suppose there's many stories like that, I suppose, but each one of those is worth a million, isn't it? It's
Well,
like
yeah, if it's
wow,
him, if it's
yeah.
just one person, it was worth it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, absolutely. So I guess there is some sort of responsibility. This is a conversation we've had. There is some. I feel responsible for doing a good show for a start. I feel responsible for being fit enough to do it. I never want to be perceived, or none of us, that we're tired, like old blokes going through the mission. I'm not saying I haven't done that, after a 40-day tour, but I mean, most of the time, you've got to remain a bit vital, and we got that kind of slot in the middle of in a rut where sometimes, when there was one, we did a thing for Nick Turner, so we did a bit of like Silver Machine, and then you know, people kind of, well, there was one week where about four people died, you know, we sort of like, it's like a medley, but at the same time, it lets us expand. So you don't know you're going to get exactly the same every night. I try and say something different every night, you know, and I've seen so many bands that say exactly the same thing, and you go like, oh, really? Really? I
Mm.
mean, you got to, as you know, you speak all the time and you got an idea, you've got a template, but it's really good if someone says something and you can react, you know. It's like it's good. I mean, we were talking about Stuart Lee, you know, and doing the same thing. And the same with Henry Rollins, you know, saying the same thing every night. But when you watch Stuart Lee, it's a gift when someone heckles him. He's just like, "Hmm," and
That's so
that's
effective,
the
yeah.
bits you wait for, isn't it? You know. I like
And the
Stuart
same
Lee. Yeah.
thing in it, what Stuart does, he's to what you do, he's got a set. So
Yeah.
he plays his learned
Yeah.
set of music. He jams
Yeah.
around with it and then he goes off at tangents, which is what you did. I think Stuart, in a sense, is very similar to a punk or a post-punk band, really. He's
He
just a
is. He likes the Ruts actually and Ruts DC. He's got the albums because like Ruff, I've not had a chance to go and see him yet, but Ruffy's been to a couple of his shows, you know, and he goes back and he's chatting to Stuart Lee backstage. It's kind of weird, isn't it? Comedians, they're all there.
but I think
Yeah,
he's in a different space. I think he's closer to the music, to the bands that in our
yeah,
world than he is
yeah,
to comedians in a sense. Mm.
yeah. You know, about material. I was watching him, and you know, he's got some fantastic ones, and but there's one where he's going. You know, he's been at home with his kids, and he said, you know, where can I get the inspiration from? And I've been there, you know, being a dad watching Scooby Doo, and then he does like 20 minutes on Scooby Doo, and the, you know, bloody, you know, the rope bridge, and you know, it's fantastic that the way he takes it, and then he goes on and on. It's just genius, really. So yeah, humor is everything in it. You got to have it. But, yeah,
Look, looking back at the music, and we talk about that Skinhead guy for Dundee before. I mean, maybe the most powerful statement in the bands, Ruts and Ruts DC, is that perfect fusion and synthesis that he did between black and white cultures. Coming from a white perspective,
yeah.
but presenting it in a way that it opened doors for people to go and find this other stuff. And I think of all the bands that came out of that period, the punk period, a lot of people say this, that the Ruts and onwards to Ruts DC did it the best, actually.
Well, that's nice. I mean, but obviously, what can I say? We're inspired by black bands, really. So, you know, and we were lucky enough to, you know, the way it happened, really. I was only like 20, 21 when all this started, and you know, we'd be around Malcolm's house, and Chris Bolton would come round, and Clarence Baker, and you know, to get a bit of weed or whatever, and you'd just be there in a little squat room and chatting, and say, oh, you know, we should do some gigs together, and then we just started doing gigs together. And again, I'm into my, you know, the stop frame situation was us and Mr. and Roots used to do gigs before it was called Rock Against Racism. And if you had a stop phone, they'd be down one end playing dominoes, and we'd be the other end, like being the Ruts with like girls dressed in bin liners. I mean, it really did happen. But the stop frame was like we came like in the end. They got more into Rastafari, and they were in the middle, and they had a big like newspaper full of weed. They were reading from the Bible with giggling girls in still in punk clothing, and they were just completely okay with it. You know, we were there smoking the weed, getting we couldn't really handle it. You know, they're all like righteous, like, and we're like, oh, going, man. But and then we used to jam at the end, and usually if they went on first, you know, sometimes we went on first. Sometimes it was very. I don't think I've ever been in such an equal situation as that. There is talk about doing. We're always talking about doing a gig or some more gigs together. Some of them have gone actually, but when they had that rebellion a couple of years ago, where they had the R stage outside, remember? Were you there for that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I went a day early because Misty was there, and I went down the front, and I just was great. And
Mm.
so I went that year. All the wristbands didn't get you everywhere, so I went back, and there's all security. And I said, I've got to go back and see Misty Roots. And I said, look, you can't. You got the wrong pass. And I said, look, let me tell you a story. And I started telling him, I said, when we, and I went, and he went, oh, he said, in the end, he went, look, just shut up and go through, you know, because I was telling the whole story. And so I went through, and I went, so it was lovely to see him. And we were very, very lucky this story is quite well known, but we played on the back of the truck of anti-Nazi League rally, and we were on the back of the track, and and Tony, I can't remember his African name now, but Tony, he was there playing the bass, and we're jamming along reggae, and I'm going, and he's going, no, less notes, man, less notes, and it's like, he goes, no. So I really cut my teeth learning that, and I think, I mean, Ruffy had played in a lot of black bands when he was young, so yeah, it's a crossover thing. Yeah, I think that's, although people take it for granted now, but I think the actual meeting of the two cultures has slightly diminished, if anything, and that's quite sad, because when we used to do those gigs, it would be, I wouldn't say equal, but we used to go to black gigs, and black people used to come to white gigs, and that reggae thing really joined the two people together. And we always say about you'd have a DJ, maybe Don Letts or maybe someone else playing reggae and dub in between the punk bands, and it really cooled down the pace. It was great. I find that, I rarely look out these days and see many black people there, which is, I'm not saying, oh, we should have more black people. I'm just saying the cultures do split. And I think the problem is with mankind, really, is like if you leave them without any sense of unity, they all scuttle back, including myself. You scuttle back to your own tribe. It's very easy. That's why we were lucky enough to be on People Unite label, which was their label. We still say nearly every gig, People Unite remains our message. And I can't really see an argument against that. I mean, because you've got to go, no, I don't think people should unite. It's like crazy, without getting into the politics of it. That's with that, when people say about politics, I said, well, it ain't really about that. It's about People Unite. It's just like, why not? Why not help each other out without being like,
it's not left or right wing. It's just been a human, isn't it?
well, we've got a left wing and a right wing. Well, let's fly straight,
I mean, in a way, punk at its very best was a synthesis of cultures. It may be very subtle. Some bands will have more of these other cultures mixed into what was notionally thought of being punk rock, and some would have less. But it was in there when that's when it was. That's when it's very
definitely,
wasn't it?
definitely. And then you got bands like the Bad Brains and stuff like that, which was like wow, and Death and people like that, and they were about, and it wasn't all punk is what it should in a way. When people argue with me, I said, look, I'll tell you what it is, because well, what is it? And I said, well, it varies day by day, really, but the essence is still there. I think you've got to care. I think you've got to care about the community, and that being the people that come to see you. There's a certain, as I say, a certain responsibility, like we're saying, and yeah, I just think you've got to keep the quality up, of the songs as well. It could have gone really wrong, we could have written bad songs, and or we could have written none at all, which I think is more of a crime in a way. Just doing the same old, same old. I mean, you'd go mad, wouldn't you?
I mean,
We
before,
pulled out. Sorry, mate.
earlier on, what your starting point, I'd imagine, would you be in the early to mid-70s more of a rock fan, and then you start your journey in that kind of space? Well, where do you start your musical journey?
Tamla Motown, really. I mean, I couldn't help it. My sister, well, so my dad didn't really have many records because people didn't in those days, but he had the Stones, the high, big hits, High Tide and Green Grass, which was fantastic. A couple of Beatles albums, fantastic. And he also had Fats Waller, which was a strange, he's a pianist, fantastic, but black. So that was amazing. And my sister got into Tamla Motown, buying Tamla Motown, Supremes and stuff like that. So I listened to that quite early on. We had loads of singles. I still got some of them. And then she got into reggae because she was going to Tottenham to these dances. And so I had like Phoenix City. I've still got it. Original Blue Beat, Prince Buster. So she was like 5 years older than me. So that's what was on the radiogram. And I was telling Ruffy, because we keep finding out things about each other we didn't know. There was a guy lived across the road, and there was a little bit of a whisper that the police had been round because he'd been smoking a joint or something. I must have been, I was quite young. I must have been 14. Anyway, my sister started talking to him, and he lent us 3 Who albums, the Who Sell Out, Meaty Big and Bouncy. So on the radiogram, suddenly the Who was on. So and then it was Radio Luxembourg, and I was listening to the Kinks before that. Pictures of Lily, under the covers, and so I mean, got to remember that pop culture at that time was excellent. It's not like the pop would be now. It's like excellent. The Kinks and the Who, for God's sake, and the Beatles and all this stuff. I grew up was excellent pop. It's still called pop. Motown is pop. So came out of that really, and I think that's where a lot of the reggae stuff came from, because when punk happened, I was still listening to reggae, and so was Ruffy. And Foxy used to love the dub stuff because he loved Jimi Hendrix and he loved the repeat. So our first stuff was he had a Wem copycat because to sound like Jimi Hendrix, really. And he used to go and play the dubs. And then we used to jam from that tempo, So found out we could do it. And then the next minute, playing with Misty and Roots, learned to play less notes and a few tricky things on the hi-hat from Ruffy, where you watch these, reggae guys and you go, wow, that's amazing. It's so simple, but great, So that's where all that came from, really. Yeah.
This was
I was not.
key.
I had a story, a brief period. Yeah. Deep Purple, I listened to. Black Sabbath first, Masters of Reality. Good. That's kind of punk, really. And then Led Zeppelin for a bit, and that was a kind of bad. But I would always go back and play Phoenix City and stuff like that when I wanted to dance, because it's all very well sort of miming along to a keyboard at home to Yes or something. I think I had a Yes cassette, and I was like home like miming along in my mind, and then I thought, this is awful, so that's the Yes cassette kind of went out. I was never into prog, really.
It's all about the dance floor as well, because of Tamla Motown.
Yeah, Tamla. And then I was a funketeer as well. I used to love funk, like James Brown and stuff. And so when I was 16, 17, I was going up to Rupert Street Market and buying advanced copies of reggae and all this James Brown stuff. And I used to go out dancing. When I was 17, I was dancing, in clubs and everything, because going out clubbing. So, I guess looking at my own story, it's not surprising. I like a little bit of reggae, really, sort of deep end bass, I suppose.
And I guess when you grew up, it was always part of the backdrop, wasn't it?
Yeah, always. I still like a dance now, John, actually. But if you ever if something really licks you and you're out and you feel it the next day, don't you? You think, oh, I haven't used those muscles for a while. Lucky I didn't do any spins.
It's always time to learn.
Yeah. I was born in Islington, right near the Angel, Essex Road.
Yeah.
And then quickly, even in those days, there was a spin out, Canonbury and stuff like that was too expensive for my family to live in. So we got spun out. We used to live in Essex Road, but big house, like 5. I think we were renting it, but like 3 of the rooms would be empty and bombed. It was that 56. One of the rooms was full of pigeons. I mean, imagine how much that'd be worth now. But in those days, it was still pretty devastated London. And then we moved from there to Woodford, I think. I started school in Woodford. Then from Woodford to East Ham, Green Street. Funny enough, my dad had a newsagents there. And then he sort of discovered he had a little bit of cancer, which in those days was very much like, well, that's it. It's not like these days, thank God. And we moved down to Southend. So, and then when I was in Southend, I started working in London when I was 16. Met Ruffy in a record shop. The rest is kind of history. And then punk happened. Ramones happened 76. So I was 20 when that happened, and it was just like, wow. Everything went out, all the prog rock went out the window, really, and the jazz rock and everything else. Yeah.
Were you, there's that little Anglesey phase. Were you up there with them? Was that the other guys who've been up in Anglesey?
No, I did go and visit. No, but that was just pre that, because they were proper hippies, really. Well, as Foxy, you said in that, actually, he says it in that interview with you. He said, "I'm a hippie." peace of love or smash your face in. You know, he was so kind of hard-edged hippies, a bit like what I suppose what would have become the festival lot, you know,
Mm.
GP blokes and all that. But they were pretty tough underneath, but like to get out of it and didn't want to be part of society really. So pre-punk, Malcolm moved up there. They all lived in this place. And Ruffy used to go and visit them, and he sort of used to take select records, one of which was the Ramones. And I did go up there once. In fact, we wrote something I said up there. Me and Foxy said, "I've got this riff, which is like amazing riff, right?" So, and then I just there was another guitar there. So, and I say we wrote it together, but we were playing it together. But it was Foxy's riff, Malcolm just wrote the lyrics. And then I never went up there again. And then they moved down because things were happening down there. I suppose in a way, thinking about it, there was an alternative scene blossoming, which became punk. But it really did fit in because rather than the hippy drippy lot, they and we were more like Hawkwind, Pink Fairies, and I mean, you call it agitprop now, but I don't know, but sort of like they actually wanted to change society. Not just sit around smoking on a big mushroom.
Fun as well, but
There was a bit of that as well, I suppose. But yeah, so and when we originally they were in a band called Hit and Run, and the Ruts were Malcolm and Paul got together, wrote 3 or 4 songs, been called it Lobotomy, Rich Bitch, Out of Order, and one other, and they did some recording. I was actually there for the recording, but it was Ruffy on bass. Ruffy was on bass, and there was another guy on drums, and he had Phil Lynnett's bass. The big mirror bass. Phil, because Phil knew Malcolm knew Phil for various connections, and he lent him that bass. And so we got Phil Lynnett's bass, and I'd been to see Phil. I'd been to see Thin Lizzy because Thin Lizzy. There's certain bands that are still cool, right? Thin Lizzy. I went to see them. I went to see Hawkwind. I went to see Alex Harvey. Long before punk, and they were all like, "Wow, this is amazing." And I might as well tell the story now. So Phil had that mirror bass, and he used to like get the lights, and he points it usually at a woman, and that would be the thing. And there we were with that bass. It was the same bass that I'd seen him do it with, and Ruffy put stickers all the way up the fretboard, and he was going boom, 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 boom. Shortly after that, the band, the Hit and Run, sort of sacked Foxy, and because they didn't want them to be in another band, and so the Ruts became a serious thing sort of overnight. And Ruffy asked me if I want to be the bass player, which saying, look, he's a good dancer. He'd have to have his hair cut a bit because my hair was a bit too long. And that was it, really. But when we used to get together in the room, we started rehearsing HIs and stuff like that. It was just magical, really. And we used to just jam and then put on this old cassette player and then listen to it back, and there'd be these fucking riffs and go, I love that bit, and like early sampling in a way.
Mm.
So Babylon's Burning, we did some demos, and it came out. That was kind of my warm-up because I never knew any scales. I was doing doom 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 doom, and Foxy went, "Oh yeah, play that," and he just went, and Malcolm just went, anxiety, and it was like, wow, that's that, simple as. Rude Boys was like that as well. I've got this riff. He goes, and I went, and Ruffy, and then Malcolm just like sang these lyrics, and it was like, okay, what do we do now? And he went, how about this? The Rude Boys, and it's like, wow, and then we get home and we go, that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
It's really organic, like it should
It's
be.
mad, though, isn't it? Mad.
So you
Yeah.
were the youngest. You're like the baby of the band.
Yeah, well, only just, but yeah, I was the baby.
Mm.
I looked up to him like massively, and yeah, and Ruffy was a bit older than me, but my dad, at 76, my dad died, so he really took me under his wing, Ruffy, with the Ramones and everything we were doing. He really took me under his wing and said, "Yeah, well, let's get on with it." And next minute, I was in the back of a van helping with Hit and Run, being the worst roadie in the world, really. But it was great to be part of something, through that death scenario. So my dad never ever saw the Ruts or the Top of the Pops bit because not the Top of the Pops as a be all and end all, but for that generation, it's like you've made it if you're on TV.
Mm.
Really mean much, but it kind of did to us. It was just like, wow, Top of the Pops, my
Well,
God.
it meant a lot to the people watching as well. It's always great
It
when
did.
your bands gets on there. Yeah.
Every Thursday. I mean, we used to watch it anyway. All those years before Top of the Pops. But as I say, very well represented because you'd have these. Well, even when we were doing it, it was like I think number one was Patrick Hernandez. Born to Be Alive, and then you get the Pans People or Legs and Co. later on, and I mean, this is just the glamour of it all. And then suddenly, but you'd always get one really good band. Even Silver Machine was on there, at the time, and it was like, wow, what the hell is this? It's like, and you'd always have a bit of that. So I always liked Top of the Pops, and then suddenly, we got on there, and it was just like, and you walk in, and it's, of course, nothing like you think the dream is in your little square TV. It's all like it's a studio. It's the first recording studio I've been in, and it was just like, oh my God, it's really disappointing. They're just little sets, This is all an illusion. But it's great.
I mean,
I think people spoke a thought like that. And when we were in there, the first Top of the Pops, I think we took a while to do it, but Babylon's burning and the door opened and madness running. And they'd only just started with the prints and they smashed up the dressing room and all went out in a nutty walk, and it was like, wow, just let's go and do the Ruts, just for a laugh, and
yeah. So it's obviously you got the top of pots thing going on there, but was it? And every band has that kind of period where it's effortless, like I said before. You just go in the songs, everything be pouring out. When did it start to feel like the wheels are starting to come off? It wasn't working quite as well, or was there a point like that?
well, it was all going quite. I mean, it was all going very well, but the obvious reasons I didn't really find out till I read the book that Malcolm actually had, some problems with the old heroin before, before the Ruts. I didn't know that. For me, I thought it had been the whole thing, which everybody had warned you about. Don't smoke that because it's going to lead to something more heavy. And for me, it had, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe. I'd read Ian Hunter's Diary of a Rock and Roll Star,
Yeah, it's great.
and it was like suddenly I was in it, and it was suddenly God. I've gone from page 7 to page 358 in 9 months,
Yeah.
and it was just like whoa! It was so hard, and whatever people think, we were all really very very close, and I was very close to Malcolm, and we were all very. I mean, we loved each other. It was just fantastic. He was always a bit of a drinker and a crazy. He never really, he was very happy-go-lucky. Like, yeah, well, I'll carry that. If there's someone had a bit of spiff or something, and he'd go, I'll take that. He didn't give a fuck. It was very it was very ephemeral for him. It was like it wasn't going to last anyway. So that when I look at it now, um, and he started getting into that, and of course it's without going too much into all this, you probably don't want too much of this, but it's a very much a thing if you don't notice. I mean, I was only 23 when he died, so if when he started getting into it 21, 22, I just didn't know what was going on. I just trusted people. I didn't know. I just didn't know he was getting deeper and deeper down into this thing. And so the cracks started showing really before we did the crack, and then we went on tour, and then it was fantastic. And then when we did Rude Boys, we'd written that song, as I said, it was all going quite well. And then we were in Europe somewhere doing a tour, and we did I'm just trying to get all this right. Chorus TV in Paris, which was the only actually proper live TV we did. And then the next day, we suddenly got, because we'd done that, we got one in called Follies, which was in Belgium. And the manager, Andy Damer, said, oh, look, we've got this thing, we're going to drive to it. And Malcolm's face was, because he'd smuggled his whatever he needed in these brothel creepers. He'd made a secret compartment in the bottom
Shit.
of his brothel creeper. Yeah, famous, really. And he showed it to everyone. It was just like, but I didn't know what it was, you know. Um, and but of course he run out, and we had to go. We had to go to do this other show, which is another 2 days, you know. And it was really so he was hanging a bit. So we were drinking this thing called Black Devils, which is vodka, Pernod, and Coke. And he was going, no, this is the best cure for coming off. And I believed him. And, you know, oh, it's great. This is better than cold turkey. And yeah, I love it. But, Andy, I'm going to go home and I'm going to fly home. And so we were all in the van. He flew home to like go into rehab. And because he didn't, he went home and it was all bollocks, you know. And
Mm.
that was the beginning of me seeing what had actually happened. And we all, I mean, I was naive. I just thought, oh, yeah, great, you know. Oh, we'll turn the page. That's page 371. Singer's got a heroin problem. 372, he goes into the rehab and it's all good. But it doesn't work like that because you
Mm.
never beat
Mm.
it like that. So we got back and we went into the studio to do Rude Boys. Sounded great. Malcolm turned up. He was sort of pinned out and I said to him, look, you're out of it. You know, he goes, oh, no, out of it, because he was quite aggressive if he wanted to be. And he was like squaring up to me, oh, I'm not out of it. You know, this is opium. I'm only taking this to get off the other stuff. And I'm like, what? And so it was, yeah, I mean, that was the beginning. And then, or I probably, when I say the beginning, it's like, it's actually quite advanced by that point, and one doesn't realize because it's very. Foxy used to call it. It's like velvet claws, really. You know, you don't really even notice it. It's coming in, sort of devastating the band and devastating Malcolm, and then we did West One, and the rest is history. Really, he went into hospital to have his nodules done because they couldn't operate because he had too much stuff in his blood, and yeah, so the rest is sort of history, really. It was, I mean, it was devastating, really. We all just soldiered on, you know, and laughing and telling jokes and getting on with it. But really, it was devastating. I don't think we really grieved till much later, you know. When we did the first Ruts DC album, Animal Now, it was like really, I hate that album. I mean, I know we're doing the songs again now, but I hate it because I was actually totally grieving, you know, and the lyrics show some of it. And it was, and at that time as well, looking back, sort of Joy Division were happening. So
Yeah.
there was this whole sort of dark goth mood,
It was about one.
which we kind of embracing, but we were actually really in a very real dark
Mm.
goth place, you know, because Malcolm had died, and it was like, whoa. So it was suitable, but yeah,
Was it? Was
we
there
didn't
a?
do it.
Was there a frustration there as well? Obviously, it's heartbreak because you lost one of your closest friends, but also frustration in a sense because the Ruts were on the cusp of being one of the key bands of that decade. You know, it wasn't like the band had done its thing and was on the way down. It was actually peaking, wasn't
You
it?
know, if you look at, you know, Rude Boys is, I still, I mean, I'll tell you, John, when I play Rude Boys on stage, there's a bit in the guitar solo where the key changes and he plays the solos, Foxy, and then it carries on. And every night I play it, I go, that is a magnificent piece of writing. I do, and the band was so strong. We were doing that. We had some other stuff as well that was really good. We and in West One. I mean, it's like started to get really amazing. And me and Ruffy have got much better. Foxy was a brilliant arranger. Malcolm's lyrics were becoming were deeper, and you know, so where would it have gone? But yeah, so there was a frustrating. I didn't feel personally that I had the right to moan because I felt really lucky as a new boy that I'd even been in a band for any amount of time. I'd done Top of the Pops, and as far as I was concerned, you know, that's much more than I ever thought I was ever going to do. Foxy was really, really annoyed because I think we got offered some Who gigs. Like we did do some Who gigs in the end with Ruts DC, but we got offered a sort of Who tour with the Ruts in America, doing some gigs, and we couldn't go because Malcolm was ill. So Foxy was like, "What?" You know, the Who were massive, you know, massively sort of working class, real punk band in a way, you know. I mean, yeah. And then so the Who were there, the Damned were there, and then we were going to go and play with the Who. It just made sense, you know.
Mm.
and but we couldn't go. So I think everybody was quite, upset, annoyed in various stages, But the thing that remains really is the sadness, the loss of him, the waste, and the fact that it was on the way up, So who knows what would have happened? But
I mean, like you say
I,
about yeah, the Ruts
yeah,
DC album had that, the shadow of it inevitably had the shadow of that death on it. I mean,
I
was
can't
that,
believe we did
I know,
it, but we
I
did.
know it's crazy, but in a way, it's good to have that documented in a sense
Yeah,
as an
yeah,
artist. But was there any hints on there where the Ruts would have gone, or was it a completely different record?
completely different record. I think we because um we started writing really together as a three piece because Malcolm just wasn't available and he wouldn't turn up, and then when he did come along he'd disappear for hours. I can't, let's not document all that. It's all been documented, but the idea was like we were still writing music, that's what we used to do anyway. And then Malcolm used to come in with his bag of lyrics and put the finishing touches. So we were, although Foxy was a great captain of the ship, Malcolm was kind of obviously the front man, what do you want to call it? He was also the figurehead, and you look at it like a ship of fools going onto the rocks, pardon the pun. But so we didn't have that, so we were kind of writing lyrics ourselves. And Fox said, "Well, we're just writing. We'll do it like a couple of just couplets." So I wasn't such good a writer then, and I was working with Foxy quite a lot. But I think it was always with a view of Malcolm coming back, and then even if he walked in and go, "That's rubbish," and then writing something good. Um, but so we went on to do those songs, and so it became a totally different album. And at the same time, we carried on because we loved each other and we loved playing the music together. And the idea was to totally change the name of the band. And we had all these band names, but basically, this is all well documented as well. Virgin said, if you change the name, we're going to drop you. And I kind of wish we'd have done that, but we didn't because we wanted to make more music, if you see what I mean. So we came up with a compromise, Ruts DC, which I really hated and everybody hated. And they said, well, you're going to have to be the singer because you've got the best voice. And I was like, what?
And
I'd
you're
never
playing
had that.
bass, it's impossible.
I want to be the singer and get rid of Malcolm. It was never like that. But Foxy used to sing some, I sang a lot. But it kind of lost its rudder because we also were very democratic. So we put vocals, Segs vocals, Fox vocals, Ruffy, which was lovely, but no one. I suppose if you're going to sell a product, you've got to have a front man in a way, and I wasn't so good in those days. It was hard. Um, but as me and Ruffy both say, I think the good thing is that when we reformed this time, we reformed Ruts DC, not the Ruts,
Mhm.
and that made us very happy that we'd gone through that hell of being Ruts DC, because we went to Germany and stuff, like people just shouting at us. It was like when people say, people say, "God, what's it like?" Oh, don't you get some grief on stage? I said, that's nothing. What we're getting now is nothing compared to what we used to get, like cans and stuff. But we used to soldier on through, because we were so strong. And Foxy wouldn't listen to any, he just like, he was such a great guitarist, and you should do that. And so yeah, that's where we went with that. And then obviously the story, and then we split up in the end because I think the grief just was too much for us in the end. It was too
Mm.
much. It was too much for us all to be together, because when we got together, it was so powerful, but it was the grief was mounting 2 years afterwards, and so we ended up splitting up because we did some sad tour, and yeah, and then Foxy said, I remember going over there, kind of patching up some things. We hadn't fallen out, and he said to me, you never told me I was a good guitarist. And I said, are you joking? I said, you taught me how to play bass. You taught me everything. I could play a little bit of acoustic guitar. You taught me everything. You're a fantastic guitar. And I said, well, hang on a minute. You never told me I was any good on the bass. And he said, you're the best bass player I ever played with. And I said, well, what we never told each other, and that caused a problem for him. And it was just like, you're crazy, Would you say, why would he need to know? But actually, like all people, they're quite sensitive, really. And Matt
Yeah.
would probably need to know as well. It's like we were just chancers, really, but it all kind of worked in a strange way.
Then you spent like years doing lots of session work. I mean, was that a part of the coping process, really, just to immerse yourself in other people's bands, or is it practical just because you need the work?
I think I never really thought that the music business owed me a living. But I just fell into stuff. I didn't do too much sessions. I just got asked a few times. Never was very good at joining bands. Ruffy always says he became a bit of a tour slut, but I don't see he did. He played with everybody. But look what he did, like Sinead O'Connor, Water Boys, and I mean Aztec Camera producing stuff. Because of that, but a lot of the sessions I did were by default of Ruffy being involved, i.e. Kirsty McCall and stuff like that, which I did enjoy. But I was never very good at taking orders, and then I ended up joining Alabama Free for my sins just because I met them in Brixton, basically. But that time I was just hanging out. I was doing quite a lot of dance music and just making music myself. Never really wanted to be a session musician, really, because it's too much pressure. I didn't even thought I was that good, really. But I did a lot of stuff with Ruffy, which is a different thing because rhythm section. So then I was in Alabama Free for a while. Well, too long, really, like 12 years it turned out to
I mean,
be.
what was it like playing with them? It's like
Oh,
that's
nine.
like everything you
Well,
had on
lovely,
Ruts
lovely.
times 10, surely, isn't it?
Christ, they were like, it's just like yeah, just like a rolling circus, really. Uh, but wonderful, wonderful people, actually. And D Wayne, who's now gone, and Rob, very super encouraging about music and just taking a piss. It was great. So it was a kind of very good antidote to everything that hadn't been done. I ended up producing quite a lot of their albums, like three, four, or five, 3 or 4 or 5, I can't remember. But I was always there, and sometimes I wouldn't be there. So I ended up being on stage with them, and it was a bloody good laugh, I've got to say. But I mean, as far as rock and roll touring on a tour bus concerns, people say to me, "Have you ever done a tour bus tour?" And I go, "Oh yeah." I don't know. Dope smoking upstairs, dope smoking downstairs, and all through the vents and everything. Like kind of crazy, too much for me, really. And then in the end, but the tour manager at the time, John Walsh and Rob, the singer, we started doing this Ruts remix stuff, and he said, "Well, why don't you come and we're going to get a support band. Why don't you be the support band?" So I did. I think it was when I first met, when I re-met you. Remember we did Manchester, and then you got up and did Babylon's Burning, as I recall.
Oh
And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, the Ritz, and we did some gigs supporting them. So I had two different suits, like one for the support band, which was Ruts, and one for Alabama 3. But I loved it. It's like pushing myself to the nth. And in the end, the Ruts kind of took over, and I didn't really have to push myself too much with Alabama's. I just a lot of program bass, and I'd just be as a character on stage, which was good, and I learned a hell of a lot from them. And um, ever since, Rob has been so encouraging with the new songs, and he just he listened to it, wow, you've done it again, and it's
Mm.
great. You need that in your life, as opposed to what are you doing. But they're still going strong. They
Yeah, but
spoke to
always a
them
big
the other
fan of
day.
that band.
Yeah, they're still, you can't get rid of them. This
No,
here they come again,
it's like
another
keep
album,
pictures.
but they're lovely people, really.
I mean, had you always wanted to go back to doing something in the Ruts area and playing together again?
Not really. No, I think what happened was when we made Rhythm Collision 2, the reggae side of things. I never had a problem with that because it was, Foxy he was involved very much in Rhythm Collision 1, but he come and go and just used to play over the rhythm. It was a rhythm section thing, really, but he was very integral to it. But so it's a long story, but when we did number 2, it was largely me and Ruffy with other guests. So that all came out, and then he said, "Oh, it'd be great if we could go and do festivals." So people wanted to put us to go and do these reggae stuff at festivals, and actually, what happened was it's very difficult. If it's me and Ruffy, it's the Ruts, right, or it's the Ruts rhythm section. So Babylon's Burn is going to rear its head
Mm.
eventually. Jar War is going to rear its head. some they're all saying at the Rude Boys. It's all fairly reggae based in a way, and so we ended up doing that support tour with Alabama 3, doing some of those songs and a lot of the newer stuff reggae based. But obviously, people wanted to hear Babylon, so we did Babylon, and we did Stand the Rude Boys, and we said, well, let's just do the ones we like. And it turned out when we started playing, and we kind of thought, well, that's great. So we sort of did it, and I was singing in a different way, and I'd done lots of rock and roll with Alabama 3, so my voice had got a bit more rock and roll, and I don't know, we just carried on from there, really. Revisited, then of course Lee Hegarty got involved. We started working stuff out like on the guitar for Rude Boys and stuff like that, and they started. It was Ruffy and Lee really that said, well, what about Dangerous Minds? That's a really good song. Well, I'm not doing anything from that album. I said, I hate that Animal Now album. It's grief.
Mm.
But actually, when we broke it down and we played it, I thought it was a pretty good song. And I wrote something of that with Foxy, really. So that was that kind of Take Kill. And then it went on, some others, Mirror Smashed, and we started playing some stuff from that album. Yeah. And so they're good songs, but they're all, I mean, the subjects are all basically the same, aren't they? It's still about, it's still it's still anti-government. It's not so much politics. It's still thinking for yourself. It's still thinking that what politician are you going to vote for? Because most of the time we vote for people to keep somebody else out.
Yeah,
Really.
yeah.
But you show me someone, not since Tony Benn, and I was too young then, really. But Tony Benn, I would vote for because I think he actually meant it for the people. No one else I've ever had since,
Mm.
really. I think they're all about themselves,
Mm.
as Tony Blair proved so much. When you think about Labour, I thought, well, this guy, he seems quite good, but I don't think politics are really the answer. But the personal politics are. So
Mm. Yeah,
we've
that's
come up.
that's probably what the best what a band can offer. It's interesting in looking at the lines in the story of the band. There is a positive, empowering thing in the story, but also a lot of negative stuff you've had to deal with as well. And it's almost like
Yeah.
the band didn't listen to their own messages sometimes. And that just doesn't that's great.
Well, I mean,
Everyone's
God,
found what they're human,
HRs,
aren't they? Yeah.
HRs was the first song I learned. Paul Fox showed me the bass line, and they'd kind of written, and I didn't realise what it was about. And I
Mm.
said to Malcolm, you scratch your nose, you like it when it shows. What does that mean? He goes, oh, it's about in a pub, because some people like to show off when they're doing drugs. And it was about him, I didn't know. I mean, you know, it's just like, Love in Vain, we've been doing Love in Vain acoustically, and it's like painful, man, to do it. But you can hear a pin drop when you do it. And we do it in a kind of sweet reggae style. And I tell the story, we just had a jam, and then he came in with those lyrics, and who knew? It was just a B-side. Who knew that it was going to be so prophetic, and so it's so painful, that song. And I think he was going through it. People say, could you have done more? Well, no, not really, because we weren't all partying it up and just ignoring him. We were really trying to help him, and he was really a friend of ours. And I think he couldn't handle it. He just used to disappear. He couldn't handle in a way, he couldn't handle the love and the care, because he just knew he'd lost it a bit.
Well, it's
So I
difficult.
didn't expect him to go.
You have to help yourself in the end. That's the problem, isn't it? Yeah.
It is, and it's very difficult to anyone out there that's had to deal with this kind of situation, be it their daughter, son, friend. That drug is particularly difficult because,
Mm.
and so is alcohol. It's like you don't think so, because social drinking is one thing. Obviously, in my life, I've been close to we're getting a bit much there, drinking a bit much, and. But if you've got some sort of meter within inside yourself to be, don't act like a twat, that can pull you back. And unfortunately, some people don't have that, do they? They get so drunk or so out of it that they don't realise they're just really ruining other people's lives. And
Yeah, I
it's
don't
a heavy.
blame them. It's not their fault, is it? They've been succumbed by somebody who provides it, that I think it's somebody else's fault,
Oh
really.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it kind of is, but I mean, we're all our own warrior, John. In the end of the day, it's just like there, but for the grace of whoever, go I. But I mean, but I guess I've always had friends around me who go, God, you were really out of it last night. You acted like a right twat.
Yeah.
I think he has said that to me. I mean, yeah, and I've had my moments with Ruffy where I said, "Really?" And we both quote each other for that. It's been a beautiful friendship and still is very, very important to you can't. I don't know. I think we're in a good place at the moment because we go out and present this. Everybody probably think we a lot fitter than we are. I mean, you sort of get there and do it, don't you, for the adrenaline and feel no pain on stage really. And adrenaline is a great drug, but you still do get come downs off it though. You definitely, I mean, you do. You know what it's like when you're not doing anything. And I don't know about you, but when I get back off a tour, I go, oh, I don't feel too bad, and then it's 2 days in bed. You feel like you've been hit
Oh,
in the
yeah,
in the,
yeah, yeah. Because
with like
adrenaline's
a
going on.
sledgehammer, and
Yeah.
it's like the adrenaline go whoa, and you're like, it's like back, bounce back and do it again.
I mean, when you get in the room and with the band with the others, the three of you. I mean, are the
Yeah,
ghosts of the guys still there with you? Do you still feel like Malcolm sort of over your shoulder? I mean, people do talk about that in bands that have lost members.
definitely. They both are there. I mean, people think I'm just bullshitting, but I'm not. When we did the crack tour, which I didn't want to do, the 40 years of the crack, and I didn't want to do it, but everyone said, "Look, if you do that, then anyway, we ended up not earning any money at it, but people liked it. But there was one bit we were in Savage Circle, which was particularly difficult. Got to play the bass line and sing, and I was singing, and in the chorus, you know, I turned around and went like God, that's great when you sing along, and they both went, we weren't singing along, and it
Mm,
was like I had this double track, and it was like the ghost was singing along me because I could really hear it. And, I don't know, ooh, but
mm,
uh, even in non-spiritual terms, their essence is definitely there in the songs all the time. Like I say, when I play Rude Boys, you think, "Oh, Foxy, that's brilliant," and Mal too. And it was interesting doing the crack because you go back and listen to songs you've been singing, and then you think, "Oh, we didn't sing it like that." Actually, he didn't. We often we call it an exercise. We obviously in the rut become this huge flowery thing sometimes. Sometimes we go back, listen to the single, and we take it right back to that short intro, and we do it. We keep it. We listen to it, and then we take it right back, and we do that every couple of years to sort of remind ourselves that we're not a prog rock band. We're still playing. We're still playing that single. It's very important to go back and revisit your stuff and keep it integrity intact, of course. Yeah.
mm, mm. I mean, in a sense, that what you do is you're the curator of the Ruts and Ruts DC of that stuff, but also going forward at the same time, aren't you? In the spirit of those bands.
I suppose we are. I mean, it takes someone like you to you know find like put that down into terms, I suppose, and that's good. Yeah. I mean, we don't sit around going like, we're the curators of this, but at the same time, as we've spoken about it, the legacy does mean a lot to us, and but we like to move on and like to keep ourselves interested.
Mhm.
So, Music Must Destroy was going to be the last album, and then it wasn't. And then we did Counterculture, which I know that on your I don't know if it's on your LinkedIn or somewhere, you're a minister for counterculture. We called it counterculture because Ruffy was really into counterculture and, wrote those lyrics because he said that. Whatever happened to the counterculture, the dream they sold you, the lies they told you, what happened to the voice of freedom that kept us breathing? Did we stop believing? That sums it up, really. And I can't believe we sort of did it. And we sort of sped it up and made it a little bit more deep purple. And we go, that works, and so I don't know. It's just like, yeah, you got to mean it if you're going to sing those sort of lyrics. And so as long as those lyrics keep coming, we'll carry on doing it. I'm always trying to write love songs, but I don't know if we hear them, but there's a love songs, aren't there? You know,
They're part of the human experience, though, aren't they? It's valid, completely
they
valid.
are, they
And
are,
look
they
at
are.
Buzzcocks, one of the greatest pop
Yeah,
songs and great love, bittersweet love songs.
they are. Those songs are brilliant, man. I mean, Shelley was a great writer.
Really great. Yeah,
It,
it's not all gooey love songs. It's they're standing at the bus stop in the
and
rain.
right from yeah, and right from the off with Spiral Scratch, you know, with when Devoto was around, they were just like amazing, really, just amazing songs, and they inspired us, definitely. Um, but I think you know, we'll jump right back to then, but all the punk bands that were doing it, inverted commas, you know, I felt that although there was a hell of a lot of uh, you know, friction between all the bands, really, when you were out there. But I felt that everybody was all involved in the same mission, uh, because now if you ever bump into Charlie from UK Subs and he's still going, I mean, it's respect from us both. But back in the day, the bands hated each other. All the band, it's like, well, we're better than them, and it was always our job to blow the other band away, and I think that was healthy. It was healthy. And now everybody, when we, when you get those like London, what they're called, Northwest Calling and stuff, and there's loads of the band GBH, and when we all walk into the dressing room, it's like, hey, you're still alive. It's a different thing. It's a different thing now. Yeah,
I mean,
Charlie's still there, man. Isn't he? I can't believe it.
it's amazing. And are you surprised by the longevity of punk and what is punk in
I
2024?
don't know what the hell it is. I don't know. I don't like the term. I didn't use it for a long time, because. But I think really it's an attitude and it's a vision. I think you should still keep the can-do attitude to pass it on. I think for me, we were always a little bit more politically edged in a way, not really who to vote for, but your own politics, as I've said, like to try and be aware and try and take care of other people and that community thing. I kind of have visions of that reggae unity thing, so the people unite thing. That's what punk is for me. Just continuing that. It's certainly not about the fashion. It's because I can't have spiky hair anymore, of course. And it's not. Well, I never did, but I think yeah, that's what it is for me this week.
Mm.
I don't really like going to see bands that are just shouty punk bands because it's boring, isn't it? Really, it's a bit boring.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
more from the melodic sort of classic tradition, really, aren't you?
Yeah,
I mean, pop's an
yeah.
important part of it.
With the groove, we've got to have the groove. I mean, Ruffy puts a groove into anything we do, doesn't he? I mean, or we do, but I mean, Ruffy, if he's playing anything, it's from Interrupt to anything else. It's got that groove. You can still nod to it, and I think that's important.
Yeah, that kind
Yeah,
of goes back to the beginning, really, of the interview when the idea that punk at its best was obviously the intensity of it was great, but it's when it's the fusion of other stuff, other ideas. If it's like Babylon's Burning comes from funk, James Brown root,
yeah,
the bass line, or there's
yeah, yeah.
reggae
I
in
mean,
there. But when you
without
mix
thinking
it all
about it.
together, that's when you get the good stuff, isn't it?
It is, I think. I mean, and of course, some of its parts, that band, and was thinking about in Iraq, Babylon's Burning. There's a some of its parts definitely, and maybe I would allow myself to say the bass line did come out of funk because I've been listening to it, but I didn't think about that at the time. It was just like what you pick up. It's given the opportunity to pick up the bass and play something. What have you got? I've got this. Oh, great.
Mm.
And Foxy was really brilliant because later on, I'd go, look, I've got this on the guitar, and he'd go, great. And he'd just go over and grab the bass, and he wouldn't go, well, I'm the guitarist. It'd just be, so we went off because we did around that period, Demolition Dancing, Secret Soldiers. They were all they never really got finished, but they're, they were really potentially really good, like crafted songs. And Foxy was just great at arranging, just like that should happen there, cut that down. And yeah, yeah.
I think,
So
I mean,
they are there.
I think Lee was a great find as well. I think what you got now, often bands don't get that second chance. They get the second chance to tour a lot, but the second chance to actually be creative and do stuff
Yeah.
that actually fits in the canon.
Well, he's a rarity because he was a fan and he plays the songs correctly, the old songs. But he's also obviously over the years become more involved in writing from the off, So And it's not easy to come into me and Ruffy, honestly, because we're like an old married couple anyway. I mean, I think we both say that. Because but we love each other. So, we still see each other and great. I saw him yesterday and well, Sunday, and we just I had a pint. He came on his motorbike, so I had a pint. He had a lime juice and soda, and we didn't talk about any business. And it was great. It was great, oh, not this, that, and like, see you later then. So we still have that, and I think that's really important. Obviously we have histrionic moments. Like you're gonna after like I've known it for 48 years or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and but Leaf slots into that, and he has to sort of put up with quite a lot as well, I suppose. But he loves it too, I think, and he does a great job. I hope you're going to cut all this bit out because I'm going to have to put his wages up.
That's where I'll end.